Welcome everyone inside the Pierres Précieuses exhibition at the Museum of Natural History. We had such a wonderful time with all of you during our series, our conversation series that we did about this exhibition, that we asked for the honor and the privilege of coming back and being able to be with you, with François Fars, the co-curator, during this special visit we're going to take. This exhibition has 550 spectacular objects and art made from natural objects, which we're going to peek through during this hour that we're going to spend together. All these objects, of course, are here thanks to the Museum of Natural History, of course, but also thanks to the L'École des Mines generous donations, private lenders, the Museum of Légion d'Honneur, and of course the Van Cleef Arpels Stone Workshop. We'd also like to give very special thanks to Lise McDonald, your co-curator, François.
That's correct.
François is our expert mineralogist who will be leading us today on our visit. And at home, for your chat and conversations and questions, Gisela Ackermann will be your moderator. He will collect preciously your questions for us, and we will ask those questions of François as we take our walk through these wonders.
Let's go. Thank you, Inesita. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to welcome you here on the site of Jardin des Plantes here in Paris. And with Inesita, we have made a selection of something fairly special favorites of this huge exhibition that inside we are right now. And we hope that you will be able to understand some inside secrets that we would like to share with you today. And to start with, we were interested by the concept of the minerals giving presents and gifts to the workshop in which the artist would create magnificent jewels. So we tried to realize maybe what I can call meta sculptures, in which you have those vertical showcases in which you have a transition from minerals from the deep earth to the faceted gemstone, and finally, eventually to the jewels.
And this is really the result of 10 years of research, scientific research and art historical research to make this exhibition possible, right?
Yes, right, because we try to understand all the different facets around the art and science of gemstones.
Which, if we're going to talk about that, why don't we start with the great history of the Earth?
Yes, the study of gemstones have tell us about the birth and the evolution of the Earth since 4.6, I shall say, million years ago, and its evolution up to the present time. So we have selected a choice of 30 different minerals, as you can see, and we start with two meteorites that are the witnesses of the very first time of the Earth, and then exceptional rocks that are after, that are telling scientists the very early age of a very primitive Earth, and how those different ancient rocks, that most of them they are age 4 billion years old, have merged all together thanks to plate tectonics to do all the different minerals that we are finding today in the Earth.
They are really open books that tell us about our planet's evolution, aren't they? For example, that jasper. It's got the gorgeous chatoyancy, it's beautiful to look at, but it holds some secrets that allow scientists to travel back to the beginnings of life on Earth, doesn't it?
Yes, indeed, beyond its own beauty that everybody can notice, some scientists have studied it very closely, and some think that it may bear one of the earliest traces of life on Earth.
About 3.5 billion years ago, plate tectonics began. And thanks to that, it unleashed the whole process that created mountain chains. And at the heart of the great mountains, as the minerals were born, we have examples that came along like these, right, François?
Yes, in that next selection that of minerals, thanks to the erosion that happened on those very ancient mountains, then scientists were able to collect those beautiful minerals that are nowadays found in gemstone Eldorados like Brazil, Madagascar, Tanzania, Sri Lanka, and many others.
Speaking of El Dorados, here we have the extraordinary chance to look at some diamonds formed between 2 and 3 billion years ago. These diamonds came to us, if I may, much more recently, only 90 million years ago.
Yes, that's right, Inesita. They came up to the surface thanks to very special magmas called by scientists kimberlites. And at a time, the last dinosaurs were still walking on the Earth.
Speaking of dinosaurs walking, I understand that this looks like an ossobuco, this beautiful rock, is actually a slice from the leg of a dinosaur?
Yes, it's a polished section within a femur of a very large sauropod dinosaur that used to walk on the Earth's surface 150 million years ago. And when the dinosaur died, the marrow inside its bones was replaced, petrified, with that beautiful red and white agate.
And there are pearls. There are pearls like this sample,
right
which
there.
is special for several reasons. It's got the pearl still trapped in the shell, the two gorgeous gifts to us from Mother Nature, biomineral gifts, shell, mother of pearl, and pearl. And it's also, because of its rarity and special nature, it was part of the Tiffany collection, which was shown in the 1901 Pan American exhibition in Buffalo. And after that, it was given by J.P. Morgan to this museum. He made some very important gifts to the museum.
Yes, right. Our collection has been built thanks to a different donation of minerals, but also art objects, Inesita.
The world of precious stones is vast. And there have always been ways in which humans have pursued them, passionately searched them out, and carved them and worked them to express power by our ancestors and many other mysteries which archaeologists, anthropologists still try to decrypt, still try to solve.
Yes, Inesita, that's right. As early as 90,000 years ago, as we can see with that very small shell that has been drilled by Cro-Magnon somewhere in Sahara in Africa. And so long time ago, and some archaeologists have done some very thorough research on that specimen, and they could demonstrate, thanks to the very accurate analysis, that the drill was done intentionally and to be set somewhere on an adornment that used to characterize some very special members of this civilization.
We could
culture.
make a whole exhibition on this one case. We've asked to show you some details as much as possible because this case is showing minerals carved, embellished. It's showing the evidence of humans hammering, engraving, piercing, drilling from all different cultures, dating all the way back to the beginning of civilization, from the European Bronze Age to ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, early Asian art periods, and even Oceania. Also the rich culture of the Americas before the Hispanic period. And this vitrine contains these works from all the different cultures and time periods. I wish we could spend more time. It's so great. Look at that Egyptian eye, all carved from stone, just for an example. This exhibition, the 550 objects, carry a very important record of the history of France in particular, because the collections are here thanks to dating all the way back to the royal collectors. For example, in the 17th century especially, Louis XIV greatly enriched the collections of France. And these rare objects from the museum collections are eloquent witnesses to that right here in this exhibition.
Yes, the Museum of Natural History opened to the public in 1640, at least the gardens, and then it has been the first Museum of Natural History to open in the world, but also in Paris, the first Museum of Art Objects to open to the public in 1748, well before the Louvre Museum, actually. And then you can see examples from the Royal Collection in rock crystal, amber, and different objects from the Sun King environment and Tourage.
This table, we could lose ourselves in this table for days. Tell us a little bit.
Yeah, it's only 1.6 metric ton of pure beauty, white marble inlaid with many different gemstones. And we have done some thorough research on it recently to demonstrate that it was given by Cardinal Mazarin to finally it ended up to the Sun King, and then Louis XV of France donated the table to our museum in 1748.
For public display.
For public display, it has been on display until very recently.
Speaking of stone treasures, I asked you to make a pause here, Francois, to talk about together this micro-mosaic portrait. People are really rediscovering the splendor of micro-mosaic, particularly in jewels. But here we have an entire painting in stones. It's not painted. It's created in 1828 in Rome, a portrait of a Roman Vestal Virgin using thousands of little tiny jaspers and little tiny limestones. Yes, even that eye. If you look at the gleam, the white flash of the eye, you may be saying, oh, Inezita is making a little mistake. That's a touch of paint. No, it's all stones, everything.
Yes, when we speak about gemstones, we are thinking of very valuable diamonds and rubies, but here nothing that valuable, I would say. Like Inezita mentioned, just limestones and jaspers. Nothing has been painted, but you can see all the delicacy, all the patience that was needed to prepare that piece of work that was so exquisite in 1828 when it was done in Rome that the King of France, Charles X, wanted to buy it. But finally, eventually, it ended up in our collection here at the museum.
I think you call it your stone Mona Lisa.
Oh, that's right, yes. I like to say it, my stone Mona Lisa, because it has never been in exhibition until for more than 60 years. So it's really a chance to have it on display today.
That's very important. Another example, the Trésor de la Terre, the ongoing exhibition that Francois curated, is always here. But this one has a lot of the treasures that you never have a chance to see, and a lot of works of art that involve minerals and gems even. For example, here's a modern art sculpture. We were looking at something from 1828. Now we're looking at a modern work of art. This modern work of art was created by Jean Vendôme with the assistance of his son Thierry. And you did a wonderful conversation about that, which everyone can see. Gislain can give you the link to see, watch, and share again at home. An in-depth, hours-length conversation on this object meticulously assembled, this assemblage work of art using gems and having very specific aspects to it.
Yes, right. One more time, when we think about gemstones, we are thinking jewelry of a Hollywood star, of a princess, etc. We are not thinking contemporary art, and you have an example in which natural minerals and faceted minerals were set into that modern sculpture. So for us, it was very important to show to the public some very unexpected use of gemstone in art.
You talked about queens and princesses and stars, but actually the amethysts at the top do come from the crown jewels of France.
Yes, well, at the time when Jean Vendôme selected the different gemstones from our drawers in 1676, then all the amethysts were all together in the same drawers, whatever the regular amethyst, if I can say things like that, but also the amethyst of French crown jewels. But at this time they were not separated. And then he could pick the best of them. And indeed, they used to be set on a tiara for the second wife of Emperor Napoleon I, that is Marie-Louise of Austria. And the jewel was dismounted in 1815. And then finally, eventually, the gemstone ended up at the museum.
I can tell Jean Vendôme worked on it too, because those of us who've become Jean Vendôme specialists and fans, we know he loved those watermelon slices of tourmaline.
Oh, yes.
And there's some great tourmalines in the exhibition. In fact, in the second part of the exhibition, we're going to focus on how precious stones were formed in Earth, and also the correspondence between scientists and artists, how they've created a dialogue through these gems.
Yes, we have made a selection of 40 different gemstones to explain the connection between the formation of minerals, the creation of jewels in Hesita. And to start with, that understanding on how the minerals were formed in the deep earth, we start from something 200 kilometers deep below our feet with, I would say, the king of great depth, Peridot.
And we start with the sculptural composition, another sculptural composition like you have talked about, that's really the theme and thesis of this exhibition. Looking from the bottom, which is the mineral, the big, gorgeous mineral itself. I believe this one is a generous loan from the École Mines.
Yeah, right? There's a Paris School of Mines, yes.
And then looking up through the faceted pieces and up to the jewel.
Yes, through that meta sculpture, as you say, in Hesita, we wanted, and I wanted, that children could have a direct look to the minerals. So it's at the level of the eyes of every kid. And then we see that beautiful volcanic rocks bearing beautiful crystals of peridot from central France that erupted several million years ago when the volcanoes were active in central France. And then more we go up, we see how the earth has distilled purer and more magnificent crystals, and that include another loan from the Paris School of Mines, number 5, here in the showcase, that beautiful crystal of peridot from Egypt, that is magnificently green.
And then there are the gorgeous faceted peridots, even next to a very, very vibrant green one. August is my mom's birthday. That's her birthstone. It makes me think of it always. Next to it, though, surprisingly, is a colorless peridot, because peridot means green stone, doesn't it?
Yes, on those two faceted gemstones that we see, yes, we have 97 carat of highest quality peridot from Egypt. And if peridot is green, because it contains some trace amount of iron that brings the color. But in some cases, the same mineral do not bear any iron at all, and it's extremely rare. And it is the faceted colorless stone that you see on the right. I purchased it for the French people in Tucson, Arizona in 2008.
As usual, you stunned me and I learned some delightful things from you. I'd like to know, since it is a colorless peridot, where did it come from?
Yeah, it's coming from Tajikistan, and it was the first time I could see so pure and faceted colorless peridot. In fact, mineralogists, we call it fosterite.
And indeed above, staying true to the peridot green, a very rich peridot green, we have a parure created in the 1970s by Van Cleef Arpels for Peggy Rockefeller, the summum of glamour. Now, always at great depths inside the earth, nearby to peridot crystals, another treasure, the diamond. And here we find a new ascending meta sculpture from Mother Nature's workshop. We could say from Mother Nature's workshop to the artist's workshop. And what is that?
Yes, we have at the very bottom, number 1, as you can see in the showcase, we have some very rare diamonds coming from South Africa. So they are not rare because they are very big. Those are the very, very first, among the very, very first diamond to be mined in South Africa by a French miner in 1870, and who gave his collection a bunch of years after. And above that, when we go up and up in that showcase, we see more and more crystals that have a great interest for mineralogists. For instance, on number 2, you have an octahedron that has been given by Serge Fradkov recently to our museum, 12.4 carats of a very rare crystal of diamond, because it's bearing an inclusion that forms like a flower. And above them, some more and more gem quality crystals. And then, as a number 8 above it, we have a very shiny, beautiful diamond that is the purest quality that we can imagine, totally white, totally pureless, totally colorless, sorry, I should say, totally pure. Some specialists call it DIF, which is the highest grade we can imagine for a diamond. And it's nearly 29 carats of pure beauty, and this faceting is called hacher. That is a kind of square cushion, square brilliant.
I think that is it almost fights back with the camera as you try to photograph it because it's flashing so much light.
Yeah, this is diamond.
Cut, color, clarity is all there. And when you talk about that flashing glamour and the marriage of the scientist and the artist, the necklace at the top, Queen Nazli's necklace from the 1939 marriage, first marriage of the Shah of Iran, of Princess Fawzia, it's a perfect example of the marriage of the work with the platinum, the work with faceting, picking the best diamonds, faceting the best diamonds, and putting them together in a kind of geometric, geological poem, we could say.
Yes,
White
right.
style.
Yeah, exactly, Inesita, you're right. What is fascinating here in that exhibit is that platinum and diamond form very deep in similar condition in the deep earth, but artists have brought them together in a very specific jewelry style.
Yes, in our discussions, Francois, we've discussed a lot about how platinum and diamond have so much in common. And when you think platinum and diamond and white style, think of the 1930s, think of the Art Deco period, the time of black and white movies, glamour, think of Ginger Rogers, think of all the great actresses, think of how they brought the diamond and platinum glamour to the forefront of our imagination. Here we have some examples of 1930s jewelry on the left, and then we move forward in time, even up to the modern time. On the right, the tiara at the top right is a tiara that was made in 1976 by Van Cleef and Arpels and worn in 1978 by Grace of Monaco. And the number is, yes, the top right. But it's a timelessness. It's hard to even see the difference, and that's really what's great, is that from the 30s straight through till the modern era, you see an evolution of this white style. I'm particularly smitten by the fact that I think it's connected to the black and white movies of the 1930s.
Yeah, it's a very striking parallelism that you have discovered.
Temperature decreases sharply as soon as one gets closer to the surface of the Earth. And that's how you've organized this exhibition, which means that after pressure, temperature is a very important factor. And that minerals like moonstones and spessartine. We're looking at moonstones now.
Exactly. And as much as we go less deep in the earth, something like 10 or 20 kilometers deep, we have some other magmas that are crystallizing, and some of them are delivering some other treasures, like the moonstone that we are looking at right now, but also another type of garnet that we have close by, right on the left, that is the spessartine orange garnet.
Before we pass by, let's look at that Van Cleef & Arpels moonstone at the top. It's really iridescent and gorgeous. And then the spessartine. The spessartine's very orange, isn't it, Francois?
Yes, it's orange, beautiful orange. And but though with some of them are more reddish and some of them are more darker. You have a whole range of different colors. It's one of them, my favorite, especially the beautiful quartz that we see at the bottom with all those spessartine garnets.
I think you told me that the middle spessartine sample can never travel. That's this one right here. It can never travel because it's too delicate. Is that correct?
Yes, it's delicate.
So I
we
wanted
will try to
share with everyone at home a good shot of that.
Yeah, because it won't be, cannot be seen abroad too easily.
It can never travel. When we talk about this type of stones, we need to talk about the Quartz Kingdom, right?
Yeah, because in those conditions also we have also another mineral that crystallizes. This is quartz, and among them rock crystals, as you soon will see here.
Not just rock crystal, but also, once again, so partial to pink, the rose quartz.
Yes, the rose quartz that you like so much, Inesita, don't you?
And what about this with the circles? That's really, really beautiful.
Oh yeah, so we have a selection of beautiful minerals that are talking to each other, especially that orbicular granite that talks very well with that box of Art Deco. We have many things to speak at.
Now, something happens that causes another type of mineral to form, which is what we're going to look at next. What is that?
Yes, that's right, Inesita. And more, we are getting closer to the Earth's surface, something like several kilometers deep. We have some very special media. They are called fluids, so it's full of water under very high pressure and a high temperature, full with carbon dioxide and many other ingredients, and amongst them gold. And gold can be transported into those fractures deep in the earth and crystallized there, and this is how gold veins are forming.
Oh, we have a question from Gisela from people watching from home. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Gold is a precious mineral, not a precious gem, they're asking.
Yes, that's right. It's a precious mineral, so it could be strange to find it in an exhibit on precious stones. But the answer is that for us, mineralogists, gold, when it is found in nature, is named native gold. That is, it's forming natural crystals, as we can see in that showcase with number 1, number 2, and a big nugget of nearly 1 kilogram above it. And those natural form of gold, they also form crystals. We don't see them very well by eye, but if we look at them under the microscope, we will see an array of many different crystals. So for us mineralogists, I would say that gold is a mineral like many others, like diamond, like quartz, and so it's forming a very precious mineral like all those other minerals.
It makes this case extremely important because how often, they're very rare, how often are these exquisite specimens of gold treasured and saved and shown to the public? When they are, and when artists and jewelers have a chance to come to a place like the museum, what do? They find themselves inspired. Particularly characteristic of the 70s was what happened? Particularly characteristic of the 70s was a type of jewelry where jewelers would emulate the actual texture of the gold nuggets and make jewels like this eucalyptus seed set above.
Yeah, it's really magnificent to see how this jewel is dialoguing with the native gold specimens that are below.
And it's an exquisite example and a chance to see it while we're all together here in front of one of your metasculptures.
And then in a very similar condition, not exactly the same conditions, we have the possibility, the geological possibility that some other minerals can form. And of course, one of everyone's favorite, I would say, it's Tourmaline. And for you, I would like to spend some time on one of our favorites. It's a Paraiba Tourmaline.
Number 7, yes.
Number 7, weighing 65.5 carats. We call it the Lagoon because it's so deep, intense, neon blue, magnificent stone. The
color jumps right back out at you. But Tourmaline can be this whole rainbow of colors. That's why you've made that beautiful array of the rainbows.
That's right, yes. It's plenty of colors, exactly like Topaz that is on the other side of...
So here is the Topaz case with imperial topaz, but even red topaz.
Yes, and our special favorite, I would say, is number 7, this red topaz, faceted red topaz, weighing 27 carats, because red topaz are extremely rare, and especially of that quality, so we were very happy to be able to show to the public this wonderful specimen.
The blue topaz, the red topaz, the pink, all these different combined at the top in by the jeweler's hand, by the lapidaries and the jeweler's hand. As you always say, that marriage of the science and the art is what's seen so well in this exhibition. Now, I've shown a partiality to pink, so here we are in front of 2 great pinks that changed the history of gemology.
Yeah.
The great gemologist Kunz discovered, and it was named for him, kunzite, in California.
Yes, right.
And we have, again, gifts from J.P. Morgan from the Tiffany collection, which involve even a kunzite that might have been faceted by Kunz himself.
Yes, number 4 is one of the crystals originally discovered by Kunz himself in Pala, California, and given later on in 1902 to the museum. And above them, you have also number 5, two-faceted kunzite that have been cut by and polished by Tiffany before they were donated to the Museum of Natural History.
Now,
so we are very proud to keep them.
Now, before we jump, that's a type of spodumene. Before we jump to the other pink is a beryl. It's Morganite. The Morganite is over here, and I love beryls, so it's a good place to move into our beryl world, right, Francois? Look at these fabulous pink beryls.
Especially Morganite, that pink beryl. Especially number 3 is a crystal that has been also discovered by George Kunz for Tiffany and purchased by and given later by JP Morgan to the museum, and for which the mineral was dedicated to JP Morgan.
Loving beryls means for me also loving aquamarines, the blue beryls, and loving heliodor, helios like the sun, the yellow beryls. We're stopping in front of a case which involves beryls, which show us, I love them already, but which show us that not only is France the place where this exhibition is, but France is a precious stone country. Perhaps some French people don't know. Perhaps some French people don't really know it, but underneath the surface of this country, my adopted country, which I love so much, their underground harbors numerous gems like some of these. In fact, this one, with those little crystals of aquamarine in it, comes from Mont Blanc, right?
Yes, right. It has been discovered in a glacier near Chamonix, and they are still very rare. But this enormous slab of granite show many tiny crystals of aquamarine, of deep blue in color.
And number 3, the heliodor, is from the Limousin?
Yes, right, from central France. And actually, this beautiful heliodor is one of the best, if not the best, gem quality crystal that has ever been found in France and has been kept as it uncut. And we show it with aquamarine because both heliodor and aquamarine are both colored by iron, but with 2 different kinds of iron.
Aqua, blue, like aqua, like water, and the helios, the yellow, like the sun. Of course, when we say beryl, most people are forever enchanted. Humans have been enchanted from the beginning by the green beryl, which we know as emerald. Emerald, right. All connecting with healing and with vision that sees forever and all the talismans, but also emerald when it's preserved as a crystal, like this one from Zambia, that can be enchanting just to look at the crystal, which connects us with why our ancestors saw so much power in them.
Yeah, yes, right, and it's really exceptional that this huge crystal from Zambia has been preserved. It weighs 8.6 kilograms, and we can see it's gemmy in many different places. So we hope it will be kept in the future as it, because it's such an extraordinary piece.
I think we can trust that it will, because specimens like this have now achieved enough value that it'll be safe, yes, I hope.
Yeah.
Speaking of discoveries and safe, many of our students ask us all the time about Cleopatra's emerald mines, in quotes. Did they even exist? And through you here at the museum, I see this one, which actually you've identified as conclusively from there, from Egypt.
Yes, that's the original emerald that has been rediscovered in 1816 by Frédéric Calliot, a French traveler who spent a lot of time to determine if those mines really existed in the antiquity or not. And in fact, he could find actually the original mines that were not belonging to Cleopatra, but they were mined by the Romans. And this is the sample of the original rediscovery at the beginning of the 19th century.
And it's documented, and the engraving is in the catalog of the exhibition.
Yes, so please, if you want to see the whole story, it's everything in the catalog.
Now, the exhibition changes. We're looking at more emeralds, more gorgeous beryls, of course, all the way up to the jewelry itself. But the carpet even changes, because we're talking about magma evolution
yes,
to
right.
water water, to make it very
yes,
simple.
so because emerald can form
we
in
are.
two very different conditions, either under magmatic condition or more related to the surface, as you say, very rightly in Isita, thanks to circulation and of meteoritic water, rainwater, if you wish.
This is a perfect dialogue, I think, between you as the scientist and also Lise MacDonald as the curator, and the scientist, the lapidary, and the jeweler artist. Because we have an emerald from Colombia sitting on its pyrite and with its calcite, so the white, the green, and the gold, speaking to the mysterious lily of the valley necklace, Muguet Mystérieux, with the emerald mystery set leaves right here. It's number 5. And the lily of the valley flowers made of white diamond and yellow diamond.
Yes, the match was unmistakable. When we could see both pieces together, we thought that they must talk to each other.
Now, to the actual...
And then the next showcase is on emerald jewelry.
We're continuing with the emeralds, and we're going into looking at, again, it's the dialogue, different kinds of dialogues, because you have Colombian emeralds again, which are probably cut much earlier in India, these drops. And these drops were made, number 4 they are, made into a necklace for Princess Faiza, another great princess of Egypt. This is an Art Deco masterpiece worn by Princess Faiza and now in the museum collection of Van Cleef Arpels. You see the Art Deco geometry, the diamonds beautifully cut, and you see the dripping, beautiful old drops of emeralds. Same thing with the bracelets that also transform into a necklace of daisy fellows. You have Indian cut emerald drops. It's number 3 that can be converted into a necklace, which are very much symbolic of the type of personality Daisy Fellows was. She was an icon of 20th century fashion. She was an individualist with a sharp wit who piloted her own boat through the dangerous canals of Venice, and really emblematic of that spirit of that era. These bracelets were made in 1928-29.
And you know, in Isita, for us French, Daisy Fellows was born French in Paris as a Marguerite, so Séverine Philippine Decazes de Glucksberg, so a very consistent name, and she was a major figure of aristocratic life in Paris in the 20s.
And taste as a journalist, as a columnist,
right.
an arbiter of fashion.
Absolutely.
We need to take a quick stop in front of the amethyst case. Amethysts are always a perennial favorite, and in this amethyst case, we have, in the amethyst case, we have some spectacular specimens, and I actually asked for us to take a look, Francois, thanks to what you put together with the amethysts.
Yes, right in that showcase that you can see, that you will see very soon. Here we are. You can see a selection of different amethysts from different origins, and among others the faceted the amethyst from central France, from Auvergne, different amethyst faceted, especially in memory of the French poet Rémy Belleau from the Renaissance, who in 1574 wrote magnificent poetry on amethyst.
For obvious reasons, as you look from the mineral up to the jewels, you know why it's often connected with legends and myths connected to wine. And I like that you said, Francois, this case can be savored without moderation. We need to take a look at, especially at the geode that looks like, well, some people say it looks like a cave. I think it looks like a lavender fairy cave. Some people think it looks like the gaping mouth of a mythical beast that's going to eat them. It depends on your imagination. We have a question looking at the necklace at the top from home, from our audience, saying these necklaces are very beautiful, but are they very heavy? No, they're really not. The work is done so that they're comfortable. They're not heavy. Hopefully everyone gets a chance to try one someday. And we also had a question about emeralds. Are they, do they seem fragile to cut? How can they be made in those drop shapes?
Yes, it takes a lot of time and a lot of patience to polish emeralds as droplets, because we must avoid them to crack, and it's extremely difficult. Only very expert lapidaries can achieve that. It takes several years, more than 10 years in Exeter, to achieve the mastering in cutting droplets. There are some special instruments actually to realize that people are not using the traditional lapidary instruments and tools to achieve those droplets. It's really an art, in fact, to me.
In fact, the lapidary is the key player. As you always say, you see these beautiful jewels, but it's the lapidary who must master the techniques in order to make them. Thanks to the lapidary who reveals the beauty of these gems, people are very inspired. As we're saying, literature, we're talking about the amethyst with literature. When we talk about stones that inspire literature, there's a case, stones that inspire poets, there's a case we need to visit. That case involves onyx. We're going to stop at the onyx case. And Francois, tell us a little bit about what you put together with these onyx pieces.
Yes, in those onyx pieces, in Exeter, you are totally right. We also speak about another writer, famous French poet called Roger Caillois, and all the stones that you see at the bottom of the showcases, from 1 to number 4, are so-called dream stones from Roger Caillois. So dream stones means simply stones for which you want to dream when you look at them. So it's a Chinese tradition from at least the Song Dynasty,
yes,
that has been recycled, reused by Roger Caillois in the year 1960, 1970s, to write some magnificent French poetry. And in English, you have a book translated called The Writing of Stones, that has been published in 1985 at the Virginia University Press.
By Roger Caillois, writing about the stones, and he collected these stones, which are very important to the museum. In this case, it's interesting to see how the onyx jewels express the aesthetic of the 70s, and the collections were being made at the same time. So you have a writer and poet collecting stones that inspire him, and then writing about the stones that he collected, and then you have jewels being made that really have virtually the same kind of aesthetic at the same time. With the below, the stones, these dream stones, if you will, and the above, the jewels, we can really breathe the air du temps of the 1970s.
Oh, really? It's two different collections, mineral collection and jewel collection.
Now, speaking 70s, there was a stone that came very much to the forefront in the 70s, partially because of its talisman values, because in the 70s everyone was really interested in spirituality, astrology, talismans, and that was malachite. Here we
yes,
are
and we are in front of the malachite because we are also in a new section of the exhibit that explains how minerals are formed by oxidation, and oxidation due to the presence of oxygen in all those rainwaters that gets deeper in the earth and oxidize minerals. And among them, my really favorite is number 1. So it's a rock composed by blue azurite, green malachite, and red hematoid quartz all together. And it reminds me, it has been discovered in Arizona, and this is a polished slab that has been realized 20 years ago. And it reminds me that Mother Nature has created something like 20 million years ago, because the sample is as old as that. And it reminds us so much Venetian terrazzo that we find in Venice.
And we have a question about, I think it's number 7, the astrological symbol. So the astrological symbol on the right is taking that same quality that's in the malachite and incorporating it into these visions of astrology and sort of poetry that people's imaginations are inspired by. When we talk about the beauty of stones, and when we talk about our imaginations being inspired, I think right away of this bird, Francois. I think of this bird because it's connected, it's a turquoise bird, turquoise, sapphire, diamond, with his little sapphire eye, and he's
Number
perched
7.
on his coral branch. And he plays a key role in one of our first important conversations, which I will treasure always.
Yes, I love this. I remember in Esita, we had a beautiful moment some years ago. In front, first time I saw that bird. I think it's extremely expressive. I think he's not scared to us. Huh? He's looking at us very passionately. Do you think he's scared?
I don't think so. I think he's curious.
He's
and I
very
think the
curious.
reason why we can see all that is because of what the jeweler did when he made it. And I had asked you to pick a favorite piece. You were in the middle of all these splendid multi-million-dollar pieces and you picked that bird. However, his feathers are made of something very precious. They're made of turquoise cabochons. These are the type that are typically Persian from Iran. And just like this sample you have of turquoises from the crown jewels of France.
Yes, it's very rarely exhibited. They used to belong, that's number 5, yes, they used to belong to be worn by Empress Eugénie of Montijo, the last Empress of France.
Speaking of birds, like their beautiful feathers, life contributes to making magnificent precious stones. Yes, life. For example, and I have seen so many children enchanted, literally by the enchanted forest over here, of wood.
Yes, right. In Esita, it's among the many living organisms who can get petrified, and in some cases it becomes a beautiful agate, like a little bit the dinosaur we saw a few minutes ago. This wood has been cut and polished from a big sample, a big trunk that has been discovered in a petrified forest in Arizona.
Everything
United
is
States.
stone there. So
Yeah.
all the stone was replaced by multicolored, gorgeous colors of agate.
Exactly.
So it's wood that became stone.
Exactly, and look at all those different colors, and one more time, they are at a position where kids can really enjoy them because it's at their elevation.
Someone just asked about the title of the Raja Kaiwa book from
The
1985.
Writing of Stones.
And the press was the Virginia
University Press, 1985. And you can find it for free on the internet if you search well.
Oh, download. Oh, fantastic.
I'm not sure it's legal, but you can find it.
Oh, I'm sure it is. We must now feast our eyes on these natural pearls. Again, jewels that come from life, biominerals. When you think of that, when anyone thinks of that, the more you know about it, the more fascinated you are by pearls. In particular, we have a collection here, those big, giant gumball orange marvels with their sort of flames on them, of mellow pearls collected by the emperors of Vietnam since the 1400s and seen for the very first time in this exhibition. Now, what are these pearls? How do they exist?
Yes, they are formed in Esita thanks to a special shell that, and actually we see the mollusk that is giving birth to those beautiful pearls. The mellow is a shell from the Philippine Sea, and sometimes, very rarely in fact, it secretes pearls in its own soft parts.
So the shell from which the mellow comes is number 2?
Is
that
that
it?
right above, yes.
Yes.
You see the same orange color as the pearls.
But it's rarer than rare. Remember, everyone.
Yeah.
Pearls don't always just come from oysters. Of course, oysters that make pearls can make some fantastic pearls. And here we do see a selection from the top to the bottom of all kinds of natural pearls from oysters in all their splendors and shapes.
Yes, some teeny pearls from the French crown jewels one more time to those gigantic gray fine pearls in that Art Deco necklace.
Natural pearls from before cultured pearls ever existed. To conclude our second part, we have arrived at the last principle for the formation of stones, of precious stones, metamorphism. So from lapis lazuli
to garnets, to spinels. We are all surrounded by another treasures made by nature when nature is recycling its own children to create new ones. This is called metamorphism, as you say rightly in Isita. And among the many minerals that are formed through this geological process, there's one on which we want to pay attention, that is jade.
This jade case is as precious and as unique as any case in the entire exhibition. It has, in fact, the whole story, in a way, of what you wanted to do with Lise McDonald, because you have the big, gorgeous samples, you have imperial, green jadeite, lavender jadeite, and even icy jade.
Yes, we are a beautiful selection of jadeite of the best quality. But it's not just jadeite of the best quality. We have, as number 6 in the showcase here, the most important sample for jadeite history, for jadeite scientific history. This sample was characterized in 1863 here at the museum by a mineralogist called Alexis Damour. And Alexis Damour was the first to scientifically characterize jadeite to determine its chemical composition or its physical characters. So it's what we call in mineralogy a type specimen. A type specimen, which is that sample number 6, is the reference of scientific reference worldwide for all the other jadeite.
It's Neolithic, it's French, and it's jadeite, and it was used as probably a symbol or an amulet or even a tool all the way back in time.
Yes.
All of that in that one case.
Yes, during the Bronze Age or even before, jadeite was extremely popular in Europe.
And of course, we couldn't even begin to say how exquisite number 8 is, the icy jade. That translucence, that's something we were talking about and really enjoying the fact that you have that here in the exhibition. And at the very top, the jewel. We have been talking about France and minerals. Believe it or not, you may, if you studied art with us, you know that blue was very important to France, and the royal blue of France is from the very beginning. But did you know that sapphires also came from France, actually mined in France as early as the Middle Ages? Francois has a sample here that we know was in the crown in the 1300s of Charles V, the 14th century.
Yes, right? The cut of this sapphire from Haute-Loire in central France that has been mined there during the 13th century has been set most likely in one of the crowns of King Charles V of France, who used to live during the 15th century. And as number 4, right below, we have the greatest sapphire discovery of the last 2 years, not only in France, but in all Europe. And especially the biggest stone that we see now is a 91.5 carat blue, deep blue sapphire that has been discovered 2 years ago. And by chance, the museum could acquire it to keep it in its collection.
And of course, whoever thinks sapphires, you look at the extraordinary collection in that Art Deco bracelet, is probably now thinking ruby. When are they going to show us some rubies? We're going to take a stop. There's a whole area, but we're going to take a stop in this case where we range from the ruby used in little almost mosaic patterns to create a very geometric rose bracelet that won a prize at the 1925 Art Deco exhibition, number 3, the bracelet, up to peonies with mystery setting, and also chrysanthemum with mystery setting that was shown in the 1937 modern exhibition in France, to an example of one of the rarest, biggest, and brightest colored rubies. And why is it that Mother Nature is so sparing with making her rubies big and bright?
Yes, because a Burmese ruby of the highest quality that weighs 25.67 carat, the so-called the flamboyant, ruby flamboyant. It's just a pure treasure. It's one of the largest ruby of highest quality I could ever see. It's absolutely spectacular.
Well, having stopped and tearing ourselves away from the gorgeous rubies, in the last part of our exhibition, we're going to talk about the development that Paris played, the role that Paris played in the development of knowledge concerning gemology, mineralogy, and precious stones. Strange as it may seem, this connection between the knowledge and the creation is not that well known, Francois.
Yes, right. One more time, when we speak about precious stones in Ezita, we think about princesses, kings, and beautiful jewels, etc. But I think I wanted the public also to understand that precious stones are also were also enhanced and studied by a lot of scientists and artists that we don't know very well today. And it was especially true here in Paris. Whatever on the left bank or right bank, then precious stones have been have been enhanced, have been sacralized in a very unusual way.
These researchers show us, for example, here's a discovery that around 1930, the great photographer Bresson came to the museum itself, this museum, to photograph minerals. And André Breton, leader of the Surrealists, was very impressed by these photos.
Yes, above the mineral specimen that is rock crystals, we have an extract of that 1934 publication article written by André Breton. André Breton was one of the main intellectuals in the left bank in Paris in the 1920s, 1930s, the Pope of Surrealism, as he was saying. So he wrote that text, La beauté sera convulsive, beauty will be convulsive, because he saw some pictures of mineral that inspired him beautiful texts and nearly a revolution in arts. Right after Cubism and Bauhaus, then he founded Surrealism, the Surrealism movement. And I could rediscover in the museum collection the sample, the mineral sample in Ezita.
This is it, and it's
especially
in the photographer.
That has been captured by Brassailles, the famous photographer here at the museum.
Now, all this development, the research and the development, inspired two artists that we've talked about before, but we can never talk about too much. Roger Caillois, and here we have some examples of his collections and one of his books.
More dreamstones.
More dreamstones, and very much in the Asian Chinese taste, the landscapes visible in the stone. And Jean Vendôme. At the top, number one, we have a jewel that Jean Vendôme made to give to the museum as his gift. Jean Vendôme has the ongoing exhibition at the school, too, which is going on till August 28th. And on the right, a modern jewel by Van Cleef Arpels, which in a way makes conversation with it.
Yeah, both are set with natural crystals of minerals. So in conclusion to this first, part, we have shown that minerals that were object of science and technology in Paris at the beginning of the 20th century became object of art and intellectual inspiration in Paris around the 1930s.
Well, here we have actually the collection of Louis XVIII. It's a kind of reverse evolution because it's not set in crown jewels. It's set on wooden bases with very carefully written tickets telling us what they are from a scientific point of view, right?
Yes, in Paris, the creativity was not just on natural minerals to be seen another way, that is more artistic. With gemstone, it has been a different evolution. They were considered as object of arts to be set in crown jewels, but with that King Louis XVIII at the beginning of the 19th century, gemstones were set on wood with labels. That is, the gemstones are becoming object of science. They are no more set on precious metals, but on wood, because they are becoming object of scientific interest.
And all of that scientific interest and the way that the kings are now prizing the knowledge, this is connected really to this man, to René Just Haüy.
Yes, René Just Haüy is not well known, but he has a fundamental role in everything we do today, as we will soon discover. René Just Haüy was a professor here at the museum, and he has funded the science of minerals.
We know him as the founding father of mineralogy, crystallography. We know him, but we should know him more. He was too humble, too self-effacing. In fact, he was a priest. He was actually a Catholic priest.
Yes, he was a professor and a priest, but he was also the person who, from that crystal of emerald that you can see now,
Right here.
right there, he, with the help of another scientist called Vauquelin, they were able to discover a new element that was unknown at this time, that is chromium.
Oh my goodness, from the emerald they discovered chromium.
Yes, right, and from that emerald. And in addition, they could understand that emerald was colored in green by this chromium, because before it was an enigma.
And also he was involved with establishing the metric system in 1793, right?
Among many other discoveries that he has been, he has initiated.
The consequences in our daily life are enormous, even vaccines, and for better or for worse, computer processors derive indirectly from his work.
Yes, because from his work he was able to create models in wood that you see now. That explains how crystals were formed and how a single mineral species can show different shapes. And from that was born another science, not just mineralogy, but crystallography. And from the evolution of science of crystallography, as you say, in ESITA today, as a consequence of it, we have computers, vaccines, are all indirect consequences of all that work we have seen, especially those magnificent objects made out of wood.
So further discussing the sort of dialogue of the science and the gem, France has what? France in this museum has how many specimens? And you made a selection.
With René Juste-Huy, he also founded the science of gems. He's right behind us. And he was the first to describe gemstone with all the scientific literature as we know it today: hardness, density, crystal system, chemical composition, as we do today in a gemological certificate. So he's really not only funded mineralogy, crystallography, but also is the father of gemology. So no wonder that today we have a very large collection here at the Museum of Natural History in Paris, but also in other museums of natural history as well. And especially here we have a selection of 48 gemstones that are not well used, not often used, I should say, by jewelers.
This is a selection you made out of 3,500 different series or samples. And you chose these for very specific reasons, including the fact that they're surprising.
Yes, especially I like to draw your attention on the one that is the smallest in all that design, because it sounds probably maybe to first approach maybe the most secondary. No, it's a very rare mineral in ESITA. It's benitoite.
It comes from San Benito in California, and only several thousand carats have been ever found that are of gem quality. And the biggest are this size, just a little bit over 3 carats. How much is this one?
This one is 3.3 carats, so it's not much bigger than 0.7 gram, so it's very teeny. But for benitoite, it's huge.
I find this whole display enchanting, the shadows that come from it and the idea that all the knowledge that came from it, gemology even born out of this kind of study. Also, beautiful jewelry work is born out of this kind of study because thanks to the type of study that's done on stones, for example, mystery setting. Here we have an exquisite corner featuring some very innovative work in mystery setting. For example, if you look at those cherries, that rounded mystery setting by Van Cleef Arpels, you could feel you could bite those cherries and you would definitely break your teeth. Or if you look at the parrot with its ruffled feathers, which seem to be so rounded and colorful and sculptural, that's thanks to a new type of mystery setting which was actually invented in 2006 as a celebration of the 100th anniversary. And then the very, very latest, the pine cones. Do you see the green, how the green light glints off of the pine cones? Understanding emeralds, as you're talking about, we studying the emeralds and understanding about them made it possible to learn, and we had a question coming from home again about how to cut emeralds. Understanding how to cut them came from the crystallography, from the mineralogy, and that's how you can create a marvel like those pine cones. It's a matter of needing to study. We know that people came to this place even to the gardens, to study the living collections in the gardens, because the Jardin des Plantes is a living museum outside, right, Francois?
So yes, not only Paris has been a cradle for inspiration, for inspiring a new concept in mineralogy, in gemology, but also in jewelry. And that's right, when the Jardin des Plantes, the museum, was created in 1626, many artists from all Paris and also from all Europe came to this site to explore the living conditions, and especially all those magnificent plants like buttercups that were all new at this period of time. We are at the beginning of the 17th century, and then you can see how artists have were drawing plants, but in a very new manner in Isita.
Because here we have something very unique. There's something special about this. It's beautiful. Remember, there's no Google, there's no Pinterest. You needed these engravings to learn and study. But what is about the root system?
Yes, look in Isita how the design is artistic in that engrowing, and especially the foliage that is well driven, but also we have all the root system. So it's telling us, which is very new, that science is reaching art, botany is reaching engraving.
So once again, it's the marriage of science and art. And when we come to the gardens, when we move from the gardens, we also move in to the collections in the chateau that was here, which artists used to inspire their work really until the 19th century when the chateau was replaced. Especially, as we're looking at here, many works of art that were key sources of influence from Asia.
Yes, right. The Museum of Natural History in France was the first museum to display a beautiful object from the Far East, and whatever it's from China, Japan, Persia, India, and we tried to illustrate how this cabinet, this collections, the King's collection, was inspiring artists in Paris.
There's so much. Iconography is the language of images. Artists need iconography. Science needs images to study. There's so much iconography here that people have used, especially jewelers, but every kind of artist, to inspire their work. We have examples in our last part showing that, studying nature in particular.
Yes, as a scientist at the museum, we must, as you say exactly in Isita, we must do our own iconography, whatever it's about earth, whatever it's on also on plants. And I like very much that beautiful drawing from the 17th century showing anemones, and close to it, a beautiful jewel.
Well, the jewel, speaking to the art, this work from, it's a royal piece that was done on vellum by Robert, correctly?
Yes, right.
And it's the two are speaking together in a way that's quite eloquent. The modern jewel and the 500-year-old, almost 500-year-old vellum painting. Another conversation that you staged that is a very loud conversation, we could say, is the dialogue between the naturalist study of the bird of paradise, a rare and endangered species at the time it was done, and the modern, well, 1942 patriotic jewel that was made during World War II by a French artist who might have come to the museum and studied that drawing.
Yeah, yes, because they look like so much somewhere in the inspiration. And those two birds have been chirping for a long time each other, but we couldn't hear them very well in Isita. But now it's the case. Don't you hear? Oh, they are deafening crazy.
I can hardly hear you. They're having such a conversation.
Oh, yes.
Science and art conversing away.
Yep.
And another example, the Contemporary Marlin by a colleague of yours, a gouache of a marlin done recently against a marlin clip done for the Extraordinary Voyages collection.
Yes, it was designed and painted 2 years ago by Jean-François Desjoinnet, a colleague of me, because we at the museum we still have several artists on duty that are creating watercolors and different types of drawing according to the tradition. So we are not only using 3D computer simulation, but we keep the tradition of historical and traditional naturalistic illustration.
The education, the devotion is still very vital and alive, and certainly vital and alive during this exhibition with all the children I see so happy here with their parents learning and studying. In conclusion, we understand that precious stones, above and beyond their beauty and their symbolism, are well known by all as incredible objects for scientific study. They are recognized irrevocably and forever as that. Scientific knowledge, artistic jewelry knowledge, skills and techniques, of course. But not only that.
Yes, I like to say that precious stones are precious in more than one way, and we hope that we have been trying to show you that behind princesses' fabulous tiara, there are a lot to know about scientists, artists that we don't know. So well anymore. And also in Isita, I like to say that the gemstones, they speak about our past, from where we are coming from. They are telling us what we are today, and they are giving us the path for future.
Very much when you see the children connecting in this exhibition, you can understand how our ancestors found power in these stones.
Yeah,
and
right.
if you want to find out more about it, there's this great book which is available in several languages. And here we have even the story of Cleopatra and the engraving. This book you can obtain and go much further discussing the history of this exhibition, what it's about, and all the great work done by Francois and Lise MacDonald and their colleagues. We have some questions, quite a few questions from Gisela. I'm going to try to take, first of all, oh my goodness. Is the Jardin des Plantes as old as the Natural History Museum, or was it created after?
No, it was created actually before. The Jardin des Plantes was created in 1626, and the Museum of Natural History officially was created in 1793. But in 1793, they just changed the name from Jardin des Plantes Cabinet, King's Cabinet to Museum of Natural History. But they have kept the same collection, the same building, the same people, the same scientists, so it was only a change of name.
Can you tell us about those turquoises? Were there any Sleeping Beauty turquoises or Nishabur?
Yes, actually we have both in the exhibit. We did not have time, unfortunately, to speak about that, but we have a splendid Sleeping Beauty sample that has been rediscovered by the stone department of Van Cleef Arpels in a very secret location, and we could have for this exhibit the most impressive specimen of that magnificent turquoise from Arizona, but also a very precious turquoise from Iran, showing how people in Persia and today Iran, they are finding turquoise in the rock.
It's believed that turquoise is probably, along with lapis lazuli and carnelian, the earliest gemstones because, along with pearls of course, because those colors meant so much to our ancestors.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this.
Which one?
Is there any book on the history of jadeite in Europe during the Bronze Age? Thank you, whoever asked that.
Yes, we have the answer. It's there.
But a specialized book, maybe to be written. This does talk about it.
Yeah.
How many colors of jade are there?
In the exhibit?
Or in existence, in nature?
Well, just for the translation Jadeite, some experts in Hong Kong, they consider that there are more than 20 different tones. So a lot of different colors.
A whole rainbow, I think.
Yeah, a whole rainbow, yeah. Yeah.
May I know why some amethysts are called Rose de France? I never heard of it myself.
No.
Does it have anything to do with the red glints of Siberian?
I don't know. I don't know. That's a very intriguing question. Thank you very much. But I'm afraid we don't have the answer, but we will look for it and we'll keep you posted about that. Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, I love this. What is the easiest way to differentiate between Ruby and Spinel without going to the gem lab?
Oh, yeah, you take lenses and you look inside the stone and check if you see double refraction or not. So if everything is more or less blur inside the stone or not, then based on that, you can determine if it is ruby or spinel. It's not so difficult to determine.
And what tell us about the twin color ruby that has ruby and zoisite? Their origin, and are they found in India as well?
Yes, I don't know if they are. Yes, I think there's one outcrop in India together with blue kyanite. But the one we show in the exhibit is from Tanzania. And it's beautiful because that's the chromium that is coloring both minerals. But when it's the zoisite, then chromium makes it green like emerald. But when the chromium goes into the ruby, because it's an oxide and not a silicate, then it turns, chromium turns the mineral to be red. So it's a very intriguing mineral.
When I think of that, I think of the Paradise des Oiseaux exhibition at L'École and the work with Sterlet. Sterlet took a big piece of ruby with the zoisite, with the green, and made it into the head of a bird, which makes me think of the conversation over there between our birds.
Magnificent piece.
Yes, absolutely. Could we please have a list of the less commonly used minerals? Well, I think that's going to be in here or there or come to the museum.
I think, you know, in today mineralogists, they could have determined more than 5,000 different mineral species. And in the exhibit, we show 200 types of gemstones, and I think if you want to consider all of them, maybe you can reach 300, maybe 400. But so you see, we are very far from the total number of mineral species that is known to date, which is 5,000. So you have the vast majority, actually, of mineral species are not used at all in jewelry. So there's plenty of innovation to come for the future.
Our questions always lead to further adventures together, and thank you for those questions. We'll keep going with them. We also are going to share with you the sort of splendid final coup de coeur, as you say, the special favorite, which is the Rock of Marvels, which ends the exhibition. We're going to share that with you via a video. So you can look at this conversation, which illustrates exactly the conversation between science and art. This mineral, this spectacular big mountain of natural mineral,
it's right there.
Speaks to jewels made by French high jewelry jewelers under the patronage of Van Cleef Arpels, sort of living and creating their fantastical imaginary environment specifically for this exhibition.
Yeah,
so watch
right
the
there.
video with us, and we'll see you next time.
Next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your attention.
La collaboration de la maison avec le Muséum national d'histoire naturelle s'est cristallisée autour de cette grande exposition qui propose un dialogue entre minéralogie et le monde plus artisanal, plus créatif de la joaillerie et de la haute joaillerie.
Cette exposition, elle vient en écho à ma devise pour le muséum qui est émerveillé pour instruire, émerveillé évidemment avec ses minéraux et ses bijoux, tout également fantastique, et en même temps instruire sur finalement, quels sont les processus géologiques en œuvre qui ont permis la formation de ces minéraux, et puis instruire sur les savoir-faire pour transformer ces minéraux en bijoux merveilleux.
L'idée de cette pièce était très simple, c'était de proposer pour l'exposition un point final qui unisse physiquement la pierre brute et le travail de joaillerie. On y retrouve cette idée de l'émerveillement, de l'enchantement, qui vont s'exprimer à travers un ensemble de personnages un petit peu mystérieux que la maison a créé.
Pour cet objet exceptionnel, la première des matières, c'est ce bloc de lapis lazuli de 6 kg, d'un bleu extraordinaire. L'idée a été de conserver le bloc à l'état brut, en gardant cette granularité et cette matière un peu mate, qui fait le contraste avec les pierres fastées qui vont sur cet objet. Le socle est un quartz blanc, poli, veiné de bleu, ce qui rappelle la couleur du lapis lazuli. Le lot de Tourmaline est constitué de 32 pierres brutes pour 2171 carats. On a sélectionné ces brutes parmi des centaines de pièces. On avait besoin d'une cristallisation parfaite. De manière générale, quand on utilise des pierres brutes, la main de l'homme intervient dans la taille, dans le polissage. Mais dans ce cas-là, on a vraiment utilisé le brut tel que la nature nous l'a donné.
Sur ce rocher aux merveilles, nous avons 11 bijoux extraordinaires qui viennent se poser. Et l'idée, c'est de faire une mise en scène de ces bijoux pour créer cet enchantement. Ce rocher merveilleux, c'est un défi technique et esthétique fabuleux pour nous parce que allier ces blocs de pierre dure et des bijoux de haute joaillerie, du diamant, du métal, c'est quelque chose de magique qu'on n'avait jamais fait. Donc ça nous a demandé beaucoup de réflexion. Si on parle de temps de fabrication, on a compté à peu près 6400 heures. On a fait énormément d'essais parce qu'on n'avait pas le droit à l'erreur. Mais ce qui était merveilleux dans ce projet, c'est que tout le monde s'est investi et s'est engagé d'une manière extrêmement forte. Et tout le monde apportait son propre savoir et ses connaissances au service de cet objet. C'est vraiment une œuvre collective.
Je suis très fier que cet objet vienne clôturer cette exposition. On a vraiment la nature dans son expression la plus première, en quelque sorte. Et il y a cette espèce d'écho que l'on va retrouver entre des chefs-d'œuvre de la nature et puis ce chef-d'œuvre de la main de l'homme.
La magie opère, on sent un travail extraordinaire fait par les ateliers sur chacun de ces éléments. On est un petit peu face à un jouet très précieux qui nous ramène à l'enfant, au lecteur de contes de fées, qui est en chacun de nous et qui est, je l'espère, en chacun des visiteurs de cette exposition.